Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Shedeur Sanders impressed for the Browns, but is he ever going to be QB1? Also, the Texas Longhorns enter the college football season as the AP poll leader, except they're underdogs in week 1. And the LA Rams should be panicking.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
I'm not sure there's ever been a more anticipated and then more discussed preseason debut for a fifth-round pick, much less a fifth-round quarterback. But Shedeur Sanders has brought us the discourse, and Spencer German from Locked On Browns, certainly glad that he did. He joins me now. And Spencer, let's try and cut away the noise and all of the organization is setting him up to fail and some of the stuff that gets talked about. Let's just do football here. How did you think Shedeur Sanders performed in his preseason debut?
Yeah, I thought it was really good. Listen, I think there was I think the discourse, to your point, got a little bit off the rails last week leading up to that start. And, I thought it was interesting that when push came to shove and it was just, go out and play football, you kind of got the version of Shedeur that I think a lot of people expected. I don't know that they gave him anything like crazy advanced. That part of the reason why they've been sort of slow playing it with him is that he's learning a new offense and he's getting acclimated to the NFL and he's learning the playbook. And, it's okay that he doesn't have all those things figured out right now. I think the Browns are totally understanding of that. And for him to go out and give you what he did, 14 of 23, 138 yards, the 2 touchdown passes, which were 2 really, really good throws for very different reasons. The first one, a very layered throw. The second one, feeling some pressure in the pocket and kind of just a little bit and then fires it over the middle. He showed some things that I do think turned some heads, and I do think gives the Browns something to think about here in this quarterback competition. I'm not saying he's going to jump to being the starter now. I still think the game plan is they want to start a veteran, especially out of the gate, and be patient with these rookies. And I think they made that pretty clear on Monday's practice, where you got back to the grind here, and it was still Flacco taking all the first team reps. But for as much as they've been sort of prioritizing Dillon Gabriel, I think Shedeur, sort of took a stand and made a statement on Friday night. And I understand why everyone is talking about it. I certainly understand why Browns fans are talking about it, because let's face it, this is an organization that's been looking for a franchise quarterback for the better part of 3 decades. And for the celebrity that Shedeur is, mixed in with the performance he gave the other night, where he looked like he could run an offense very competently with confidence and was making some throws. How do you not, that's just a powder keg for the perfect situation for everyone to kind of explode and overreact a little bit. And I know it's the preseason, but that's what it's all about, especially for a franchise and a fan base that is kind of going into this year understanding it's probably not going to be a lot of wins on the schedule. I'm okay with fans getting a little excited about maybe having found something here.
Well, so that's the thing, Spencer. I said this on the show the other day. I don't understand why they are going through the charade of we need to play one of Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett when everyone knows that this team is going nowhere extremely fast. So explain, why is that the path when you went out and you used multiple draft picks on young quarterbacks? If it were me, I'd be let's just see what these guys have. We know Kevin Stefanski is a good coach. He's a former coach of the year. If you have confidence in him and the front office, just let the young guys go learn.
It's a great thought. And I can tell you, I talked about the leading up to training camp quite a bit. The idea that, hey, listen, if Shedeur looks like the best quarterback, or and I said it with Dillon too, even if Dillon Gabriel looked like the best quarterback, you play the guy who looks like the best because you need to sort of sell to this locker room that you're still trying to win. But at the same time, you don't want to, everyone kind of knows what's really going on here, and that you have a young team that you're trying to develop and sort of build on the fly. I would say this, listen, if Shedeur, I don't know that Shedeur is going to have the leeway to, he's going to play a lot this week. This upcoming weekend. They have joint practices with the Eagles, which I think will be largely handled by Joe Flacco. And if Kenny Pickett's able to get back out there with a hamstring injury, maybe he gets involved in those as well. And so I think like he's going to have a chance to sort of still show what he can do. But I just think a lot of starting a veteran has to do with A, the schedule they play early on, and B, the fact that they want rookies. And I can understand that philosophy. It's kind of the old way of thinking of like, well, hey, you don't want to put a guy out there too soon. You want to kind of give him that redshirt year. I think they know they can't give either of these guys a redshirt year, especially knowing they have the 2 first-round picks next year where they might have to take a quarterback again. But I understand where, and frankly, from the standpoint of the Browns, they've messed up so many quarterbacks over the years. Not necessarily this regime, but other regimes. Like, if the worst thing that they're doing is telling Shedeur Sanders and even Dylan Gabriel to a degree, which I don't necessarily think Dylan Gabriel's ready. I think Shedeur's the better player of the two. But if the worst thing they're doing is telling Shedeur Sanders, hey, we want to be patient with you, we don't want to put you out there too soon, I think that does kind of speak to a team trying to do things the right way and not, force the rookie into a situation that then screws him up or ruins his career too early. So, I think he plays at some point. I think he has forced the issue now where he could now be ahead of Dylan when it comes to shove when the regular season rolls around. We'll see. But, I think there's certainly a lot of fanfare about this. And the more Shedeur plays and the more he plays well in the preseason, it's only going to get louder.
You can stay up to date all year on the Cleveland Browns by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Browns on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. You're Locked On Sports Today. Coming up, the Texas Longhorns are preseason #1 for the first time. Before we get to that, the Eagles might be avoiding a big-time injury. We've all been there. Logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% with their killer last-minute deals. Tired of endlessly scrolling, trying to find the best deals? Game Time Zone Deal picks the best seats in your section for you. And with Game Time, the price you see is the price you pay. No hidden fees. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, the lowest price, guaranteed. The Philadelphia Eagles had a bit of an injury scare over the weekend, but it turns out they should be just fine. Pro Bowl guard Landon Dickerson will have a minor meniscus procedure on his right knee, but the team expects him back for the September 4th opener against the Dallas Cowboys. Philly's hoping their star guard, a Pro Bowler in every season since 2022, will be clearing lanes for Saquon Barkley again in no time. Over on the Diamonds, the Phillies got into a pitching duel with the Reds.
The Cincinnati Reds start off a tough week with a tough loss. And even though it wasn't Andrew Abbott's fault, it kind of feels like it marks his next step. This is the kind of game that Andrew Abbott was absolutely dealing in, and Terry Francona trusted him to bring him back out in the 8th. He gets 2 quick outs, and you're thinking, man, he might have a shot at pitching like a complete game here. And then he gives up a base runner, and then he gives up a hit, and he gives up the lead, and he gives up another base runner, he gives up another hit, and now the other team has the lead. And ultimately, the Phillies turn the 8th inning into their entire game where they score 4 runs, and that's all they needed because the Reds only scored 1. And yes, you are right if you're blaming the lineup in this game, because that was my first thought. But Andrew Abbott is now being perceived as an ace, and an ace shuts that door. An ace gets that 3rd out. I think that he is so close, and he's done it in games past, but he needed to do it on Monday night. Now, the Reds are looking at a week where they kind of hope they go 500. This doesn't sink the week, but it's a heck of a missed opportunity.
The Brewers just metaphysically cannot stop winning.
The Brewers have won 25 of their last 29 games. Let that sink in for a little bit. For a franchise that has been mediocre to bad for most of our lives, right? No championships, 1 World Series appearance that was 43 years ago. And until recently, division championships, and a couple before that. Chuck Freeman, Instant Reaction, Locked On Brewers. The Brewers are that good, man. Tonight, Jose Quintana, who the Brewers picked up off the scrap heap, gave a $4.5 million contract during spring training, And you could argue he's the weak link of the pitching staff, but he's got 10 wins. 10 wins. Again tonight, Quintana. 6 innings, 3 hits, 1 run. Again, that would be considered the weak link in the starting rotation for the Milwaukee Brewers. They're that good. Beat the Pirates 10 in a row. See you later on tonight with the next edition of Locked On Brewers. Please subscribe.
The Texas Longhorns enter the college football season as the projected #1 team in the nation, and yet they're not even favored in their first game of the season. That would be against the Ohio State University. That game, of course, in Columbus. So that, that has something to do with the Lions here, but that's not going to stop Longhorn fans from probably being a little peeved about this. Brad Kellner from Locked On Longhorns joins me now. And Brad, let's just, before we get to the pettiness of the week 1 piece of this, the #1 team in the nation, what is the biggest reason why you think that is the right place for this UT team?
Yeah, and this team is loaded with talent. They're experienced. They've got a bunch of depth, and they've been very close the last couple of years, right? They're the only team in college football to reach the college football playoff semifinal in back-to-back years. They won the Big 12 2 years ago. They went to overtime in the SEC championship game last year in their first year in the conference. So they've been knocking on the door. But, they're talented, they're experienced, they're deep where they need to be. They've got a great coaching staff. And even though they lost a lot to the NFL draft, they've got a lot back. And, I think this #1 ranking is warranted going into 2025 for sure.
Now, the same can be said for Ohio State. And their season ended the way that they would like it to. Only one team gets to say that in college football. Really, it's certainly at the high levels there. But I think if you're a Longhorns fan going, hey, there's a reason we're #1, and it's because when it comes to the quarterback position, we've got the guy that everybody's talking about, and already the NFL talking about Arch Manning. What are your expectations about him coming into the season?
I feel like I need to have a really hot take, Peter, right? I've got to say he's either the best quarterback of all time or he's the worst person who's ever picked up a football in his life. It feels like that's what everybody else is doing right now. Look, I'm trying to keep my expectations measured, but I really liked what I saw from Arch Manning last year. Now, he started 2 games, one against Louisiana Monroe and one against Mississippi State, who was the worst team in the SEC last year. So obviously this season he'll go up against tougher opponents. Week 1, his first true road start, going up against the defending champs. That will, needless to say, be a huge test for him. But, he passed every test last year with flying colors. He's got a great arm. He's got that dual threat ability that Quinn Ewers did not have his last 3 seasons as the starter in that Texas offense. And his coaching and his training is about as good as it could possibly be. So I bet on genes, not just with Manning family, but, in sports, I generally feel like guys who are related to former professional athletes are going to end up as great players. So that also helps. But yeah, again, everything we've seen from Arch to this point has been really good. Obviously, can he do it on the road in week 1? And can he do it over the course of what is hopefully a really, really long Texas football season? That's yet to be determined.
Yeah, maybe a Sydney Sweeney collab in his future then. We do have, I mentioned Ohio State. This is a college football playoff rematch. Is the 2.5 points that the Longhorns are getting, is like, be reasonable, try and be reasonable. Is that line reasonable, given that the game is at the Horseshoe?
Yeah, I think it's fair. It's Vegas basically telling you that, if the game was in Austin, Texas would be favored. And if the game was at a neutral site, it'd pretty much be even money. And I think that's fair. We're talking about 2 top 3 teams. We're talking about 2 of the Final 4 teams from last season. Ohio State's been doing it longer, but over the last couple of years, 2 perennial contenders in the sport of college football. So I think it's fair. I'm confident that Texas is going to go on the road and win that game. Texas, they've got the quarterback advantage. They also have both of their coordinators back from last year, where Ohio State's replacing both of its coordinators. Texas lost a lot. Ohio State lost more. They had more players drafted than any other team in the NFL. So I would lean Texas, and I'm going to pick Texas to win this game. Don't let my bias from the hat that I'm wearing and the TVs behind me fool you. But no, I totally understand why Ohio State's favored, and I get why Vegas is doing what it's doing here. And even though I think Texas is going to win, I do think this will be a 1-possession game that comes down to the wire when we get to August 30th.
Yeah, maybe Arch Manning, his first opportunity to start writing a new legacy for himself and another Manning with that legacy. Quickly here, Brad, give me the biggest reason why this year will be different from the UT years, really going back We have to go back to the Vince Young days of a team that is a legit national championship team.
Yeah, I think this defense is loaded. I mean, you could point to a number of different reasons why Texas is preseason number one and why they're one of the favorites to win the national championship this year. But I think you can make a strong case that Texas has the best defense in college football, and that still matters in this sport. And, I mean, they've got an All-American caliber player at every level. Colin Simmons, the reigning Sean Alexander Freshman of the Year in college football. Anthony Hill, who's being projected as a top 5 pick in a lot of 2026 NFL mock drafts, which is crazy considering that he's an off-ball linebacker. You just don't see that nowadays at that position. And they've got Michael Taft, the walk-on turned All-American fifth-year player at the back end. You've got an All-American caliber player at each level. You've got 8 returning starters from last year. There's depth at all 3 levels of that defense. I mean, it's really good. They say defense wins championships, and this Longhorn defense in 2025 has a really good shot to carry them to their first title since Vince Young was around in 2005.
Stay up to date all year on the Texas Longhorns by subscribing to Locked On Sports today and Locked On Longhorns on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, the Rams, they should be panicking right now. Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford still hasn't returned to camp and is still dealing with a back injury. Locked On NFL host Lauren Cox is officially pulling the panic lever for LA.
And Matthew Stafford was in some sort of weird holistic medicine trailer on the outside of training camp practice. And, you know, I have said, Lauren, that I'm not that concerned about the Matthew Stafford thing. I think the Rams could weather that storm if they had to roll with Jimmy Garoppolo through the first couple of weeks of the season. Even I wouldn't be freaking out. But the back issues at Stafford's age could be a long-term thing, and it could be something that derails their season if he's not back, no pun intended, within that first month.
Yeah, this is always one of those tricky health things where it's like we feel so underprepared to like talk about the medical side of it. But I find myself feeling like, well, like Peyton Manning had his whole like neck fusion thing, and a lot of these quarterbacks have found a way where it feels like every year it's like, holy crap, how are these guys even being held together? And then Stafford still ends up playing 16, 15 games every year, with the exception of one in there that like they somehow find a way that if it's an epidural and it's a pain thing, that's a little bit, I don't want to say more manageable because I'm sure it sucks, but like the difference between it just be hurting a lot and it being like physically weak and can't withstand, the throwing of a football. And I don't know exactly where that lands for Matthew Stafford.
There should be panic in LA right now. The reason is Sean McVay said Matthew Stafford was expected to be out there yesterday. He's got an RV that's apparently a state-of-the-art recovery chamber, and he's still not out there. We're talking about a 37-year-old quarterback. The list of 37-year-old quarterbacks playing at a high level, sure, there's more of them lately, but by more of them, I mean 2 of them. It's really just Aaron Rodgers for one season, really, and Tom Brady, who is defying the odds of science and biology. It is unlikely that Matthew Stafford is going to magically get better and be the best version of Matthew Stafford this year, which is what the Rams need him to be if they want to contend. This cannot be how your season starts. I don't care that you added Devontae Adams. I don't care that some of your young defenders who are really promising are going to be a year older and wiser in this system. If it doesn't work with the quarterback, it's not going to work. And Matthew Stafford, for all the accolades he's been getting lately, is coming off a meh year by his standards. And now he's hurt. Now he's got a hurt back. And remember, the deal with backs is nobody used to have a hurt back. Once you hurt your back, it just hurts. There's levels to it. There's I can play NFL quarterback and there's not. But this is not just going to go away and be fine in perpetuity. This is a problem for the LA Rams. And finally, Fever star Caitlin Clark is making progress from her groin injury. She's running full court again, but still isn't ready to practice. And she's already been ruled out for Tuesday's matchup with rookie rival Paige Beckers. The defending rookie of the year has missed 19 of Indiana's 32 games this season. But the Fever have stayed hot lately, going 6-2 over the last 8, despite a backcourt decimated by injuries. The WNBA could use Caitlin Clark, but I don't know. It seems like the Fever are doing just fine. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, what else are we hearing around training camps before week 2 of preseason ball? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.